So let's just get started real quick. So
Okay.
again, thanks Megan for being on.
Sure.
Thanks everyone. I think we have close to 20 people on,
Yay.
which is great. If you guys don't know me, I'm Darren Pomponio. I'm Megan's husband. This is our monthly realtor training best practices that we're going to do. So this month we have, as you know, Megan's on here. Megan's been a real estate agent for 15, 16 years. Megan sells Marin is her code or her tag. I just remember why I wanted to do this, and then I'm going to let her run this whole thing. But the main thing that I remember, like back in 2000, around 2009, 2010, when she got into the business, worked for another realtor to get training. You know, her thing was open houses. I mean, that's what she had to do. And I just remember her always coming home from these open houses with quote unquote clients or people that she won over or just got their information and she has a great relationship with them. And it's been that way every year. I see her when she does open houses. It's like if she's having a downtime or if there's like not some business out there, she'll go out and do a couple open houses. And then all of a sudden she's just like ramped up again and going. So I thought, all right, we need to, what's your secret sauce and how do you do this? And anyway, so let's just get started. So Megan, basically tell us what your secret is. Like what on a typical open house, just like in today's market, a typical open house, what's your process? How do you process this? What do you do?
Okay, well, first, I would say one of the important parts about the open house is this is an opportunity for you to really capitalize on your name being out there. Get your signs out early and put as many as you can around. I know it's easy. I would say sometimes it's like, you have to put those big signs out and it's such a pain in the butt. But if you can, in advance, I think if you can, I mean, this is kind of basic, but really, sometimes people don't think about, posting their signs in different areas that are directing people. It's an opportunity for you to get your name out there, number one. I think another way is and very early on, I don't know, some of you may or may not remember Marty Bautista. He worked in my office when I first started at Frank Howard Allen, and one of the first things he taught me, he always kind of took me under his wing and said, this is an opportunity for you to invite other neighbors. And I don't know if anybody does this, but, take the time, walk around just even the immediate neighborhood and introduce yourself. I don't do it every time. I will tell you, I get busy and I don't do it, but I do think it helps to invite them. And you could also put a flyer in the mailbox. And that's kind of one of those things that people say, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You could always put it under the doormat or something. But if you have an opportunity to take 15 minutes before the open house or even the day before, I do recommend that. I think that those are sort of some basic ways to just kind of, introduce yourself to the neighborhood. But one thing I don't think a lot of people do is really research that neighborhood. You're whether you are the listing agent or you are taking an open house for somebody else, take this opportunity to make sure that you know every single comp within, a half mile of that house. I think you've got to be able to speak to that neighborhood. And I will tell you this, and I've had a lot of coffee, so I might be jumping all over. So stop me if I get way off track. But I remember a time when I was slow. And I really wanted to get my business up and running. And I had to kind of throw a Hail Mary. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go, hold open houses in Tiburon. This was not my average price per square foot point. I didn't sell a lot in this neighborhood. So I was, like, I'll hold an open house for you in Tiburon. It's like 5, 7, 8 million. This was my Hail Mary. I'm going to do an open house in that neighborhood. And, this was years ago, and I remember thinking, I might just find that buyer. It's not that easy. And if you also don't know the neighborhood and you can't speak as well to the comps in the neighborhood, or, if somebody brings, oh, did you see that house down on, 123 Main Street? And you're like, no, I have no clue. You can't speak to the neighborhood. So it's really important. I always highly recommend going through comps and visiting every single open house that is near that one that you're holding open, whether it's your listing and you haven't seen everything because you're so busy, or if it's an open house you're holding for somebody else. So I do think like the pre-marketing piece is a very big one that I think some people don't do. I have a question for everybody. Have you ever walked into an open house and the agent, okay, Maria, I'm sorry, just real quick. How far back would you go when looking at the nearby comps? I would say, look, I was thinking more of the recent, like active listings, but it is good to know what's sold. And I would say what's sold in the last 2 or 3 months, just be able to, because it's, obviously these people are looking right now. So you want to, be able to speak to what's sold and what is active. So even if you're so busy during the week because you're doing all of your things, take, 20 minutes to go run through those open houses that are near your open house. So you can say, oh yeah, that one I saw. I did this. I was helping somebody a couple of weeks ago and I hadn't seen 2 or 3 of the houses, and I made sure to go there before in case I met somebody, and so I could speak to that house. But yes, comps, 2 to 3 months back for sure. Pardon?
You were going to just ask a question.
Yes, I'm there. Have you ever walked into an open house and the agent is looking at the computer, doesn't get up from their seat? Just like put in the chat if you've seen that before. And if you've seen it and you're kind of like, I'm always blown away in a way. Now, I'm not saying I have never, ever looked down at my computer if I'm getting information for somebody. But one of the things that I think is so important is standing up and being, available right when people walk through the door. I'm usually up the entire time. So I'm going to tell you in 1 second the first thing I say to people when they walk in the door. But one of the things I didn't say, and I realized that prior to the open house, what do? Well, you do all the research and you've got it all ready. You put your signs out and you come in. Smell and lighting is key, which we all know. Turn the lights on, fluff the pillows and whatever. I have gone as far as bringing my blower for a listing and going and blowing the whole entire house. I clean the pool, I do all the things, and it's a very easy thing to do 15 minutes beforehand. And I've even had Darren come and help me because I'm running around like a crazy person, and God bless him, he will come help me blow the yard. But we're selling this amazing product. It's, usually millions of dollars, and you just got to do the little things. And I've washed windows, stuff like that.
By the way, if any of you out there want me to come and bring my blower to your open houses, I'm more than happy to do that. So
I also I bring, and I've even put music on my iPhone. I'm sorry, but it's just, and I think I see somebody just said that too. I bring music. Yes, it's a vibe. So you walk in, you want to feel like the energy is up. So, I do all of those little things. I think Darren asked me once, do you bake cookies? I have. I've done that, and smell is great, right? Fresh cookies. But I really think just fresh air is good. So open the windows, let a breeze come through, because everybody's house has a smell, everybody's. So, and it's not always good, if I'm being honest, but and you don't even know your own smell, right? So I think just opening windows and allowing fresh air to come through is like key. Tell people the night, I tell clients too the night before, please don't cook anything like crazy, super stinky.
That's a good pointer.
And also on that note, do not have plug-in air fresheners. I don't care what anybody says. I used to be a Glade plug-in queen. I had those for years. I don't even know what kind of toxins. I don't even want to go there.
You unplug them.
Yeah, I think that is in my opinion, I feel like people wonder what you're covering up or are, I have a visceral reaction to Glade plugins now. So I can't even handle it, but I don't recommend those. I think anything super overpowering is a turnoff, and I don't recommend those. So I would unplug them or ask your clients to do that too ahead of time. But back to the first thing. First thing I say when somebody walks in the door is not, sure, welcome, come on in. The first thing I ask, really, I want to before I say, how many times have you started talking to somebody, you're talking for 10 or 15 minutes only to find out that they have a realtor already. Say yes in the chat if that's happened to you, because I learned very, very early on, and don't get me wrong, it's happened once in a while, but I've made a very, very, I'm adamant about this practice. The minute they walk in the door, introduce yourself. I would for sure say, how did you hear about this? How did you hear about the open house? Did your agent send you, or did you see the sign or something to that effect? And immediately I know, who has an agent, right? So you give, and I will follow the answer. Oh, I'm working with, Lisa Byram. Fantastic. You're in great hands. If you have any questions, let me know, or have Lisa reach out to me, because you really want, you want them to know, okay, you're good. I'm not going to be, in your face, and you've attached that agent. You can write down, Lisa's clients came in the open house, and then you can reach out to Lisa. But immediately, I think it's, you're qualifying those people. And I can't tell you how just saying that one line has changed everything for me in how I spend my time in that open house. Because, in all honesty, you're trying to sell that house. And yes, you're wanting to talk to these clients, but you also are hoping that some of these people that are not represented, you get to know these people and they may end up becoming clients of yours.
What if they don't? If they come in and you say, "How did you hear about us?" and they just say, "Just saw the signs," and they're not working with anyone?
Oh, well, I mean, then I'm going, hey.
What do you say? I mean,
so I say, oh, great. Well, the next question would be, did you guys did you just start your search? Have you been looking for some time? And then I kind of get that conversation going, and then I say, where are you coming from? Because if they say, I just live down the street, then you're going to handle that conversation very differently, because they probably know about that house and the one that sold 3, 4 doors down. They're saying, a lot of times I get, I'm coming from San Francisco. My next question would be, are you familiar with this neighborhood? Do you know, San Rafael? Do you know Tiburon? Do you know wherever I am? And, then get that conversation going. You've got to read the room and you've got to read the body language, because I don't know how about you, but there are so many times where you just get that vibe, like, don't talk to me. I'm not into this. I just came to look at the open house. Can you leave me alone? So I definitely I read the body language. I'll engage, depending on their vibe, I'll engage to a point, and then I'll say, hey, why don't you look around? Let me know if you have any questions. My name's Megan and I'm here, or whatever. So then they'll, look at the house, and I'm very good now, which I wasn't before. But I'm very good now about, obviously we have these, rules now. We're supposed to have the sign up talking about the, broker buyer agreement, and, have people sign in. And I am pretty good about getting that sign up sheet there and asking people to sign. They could put, Joe Schmo, whatever, and they can make it all up. And that's fine. But I do, after I'm engaging with them a little bit, say, you know what, I'm keeping track for my seller. If you don't mind, just putting down your contact info. I'm trying to keep track of who's coming and going. Super simple. And immediately you're getting them to, hopefully write down their legit contact info so you can follow up. Oh, that's funny. I joke around and say they can put their dog's name, but it's required for the seller to know who's coming through their home. Yeah. And I do. I just, I don't say that, but you could, but I have yet, most, I would say probably the majority are putting their legit contact info, and I've followed up. That's key, is the follow-up. Let me see here. I had a couple of things. Darren, did I cover that?
Yeah, you did actually. So what if, and I know this was something that came up about, you have a busy open house. There's tons of people coming in, and there's just one group or one couple that's just taking up all your time.
Okay.
And you're trying to make sure you get yourself with everyone. What do you do?
Yeah. So I just had this happen. I have a new listing in Petaluma. Side note, there's these idea of mega open houses, having them open all day, having them open for 3 hours, having them everyone does a different length of time. I personally have begun to shorten my open house time 2 to 4. And again, not saying for every single one. I think it really depends on a lot of things. It depends on what kind of, is there a holiday coming up where it makes more sense to pack it all in 2 days and do Saturday and Sunday. I have very mixed feelings about having Saturday open houses. By the way, I'm going to answer your question, Darren, because I kind of feel like we do need one day. I like this Saturday, Sunday thing. But, again, depends on the house, depends on your business. It depends on, all kinds of things. But I packed it in this last weekend, 2 to 4. Oh my gosh. It was out of control. Partially there isn't a ton in that price point in that neighborhood or nearby. So it was nonstop. And to answer your question, it was so busy, I really couldn't keep track of anybody. I mean, it was just, and this one couple, I find out after we're chit-chatting that they, there were a couple things. First off, they acted like they didn't have a realtor. And we were sitting down chit-chatting a little bit, and that's fine because, they had a lot of questions, but I saw people starting to come and go, and I just say, excuse me. And then I reach out to the people that are walking by. Do you have any questions? I'm here. I'm Megan. If you need anything. And then I, made a point to say, sorry, I've got to introduce myself to these people. I've got to make sure that they have their questions answered. They did end up saying, well, we have a friend who, and I said, that's fine. Just have them reach out to me and, I'll be in touch with disclosures or whatever. But I think it's really important to not have anybody, whether they have an agent or not, completely monopolize your time in that open house, because you could miss somebody who's serious and is not represented. And that was maybe a good opportunity for you to, turn this lead into a deal. I think it's really important also in these open houses. So let's say it's not that busy and you have an opportunity, you've already established that they don't have a realtor, and it's not so crazy that you actually have an opportunity to talk with them as they're leaving. I think it's really important. I think there was a time in my career where I felt I was a little bit more aggressive. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be and you can't be, but you have to be careful about, two things. One, acting as if you have another listing you can show them. I had someone tell me that, I always say that, I've always got something, I know about this other property that's listed that is maybe not on the market or coming soon. Make sure that you are providing value to these people, and they may end up coming back even though you're not selling, trying to sell yourself. I met a couple in an open house recently. They let me know right away that they were shopping. They wanted to meet, interview agents, and they wanted to, make sure that that agent was a right fit. And I was very careful about not, pushing how great I was. This is how many years I've been doing this. I talked to them about the value that I bring to the table, just to a little bit. I've been in business for 15 years and to let them know that I was experienced. I made sure to let them know that it is important to find the right fit. And it is, if they wanted to chat further, here's my contact info, without being super, super aggressive. They ended up calling me, asking for an interview, which, doesn't always happen. But I feel like now a lot of buyers they want to make, with all of this stuff going on with, the NAR settlement and commissions and that kind of thing, they really want to, it seems like more buyers are interviewing. Are you guys finding that you have people that, are calling you for an interview, or are you meeting people at the open house that ask you questions or follow up with want to meet and chat with you? Is anyone experiencing that right now or no? Anyone? Sometimes? No, not at all. If you're holding an open house for another, 100%. If you're doing an open house for another agent, you absolutely have to be super careful because you're there to sell that house. you find out if they're unrepresented, then fantastic. Pass along your card and say, I'd love to meet with you further. I'd love to set up a time to chat more. And if you do actually know of a couple of other houses, make sure that they are fully, have said this house isn't for me, and we're going to 10 other open houses, because you really are there to sell that house, and that's your responsibility, if you're holding that open, which is a very tricky thing when you're trying to get business, but you have to be super careful there.
Because we have maybe 10, 15 minutes left. So I want to leave it open. I want to ask you one more question with a quick 1-2 minute answer, and then I want everyone here on this call to be able to ask any questions they want about, as far as stuff that might be unique to them. So what is something that you do after the open house, basically?
Yes. Okay. That was key. And this is what I wanted to make sure that we touched on.
So try to do it on 2-3 minutes, and then
I know. I will do my best. Sorry. Super, super important is the follow-up. I cannot stress this enough. One of my very first clients, I met at an open house. We exchanged contact info. They gave me their email address, and I must have emailed them once a week with something valuable. The follow-up, whether you have something or not, is very, very important. You have to follow up with an email, even if there's nothing. Hey, Jim, so nice to meet you at the open house. I've got my eyes and ears open for you. I'm looking for this. Maybe a couple, we've got a office meeting this Thursday. If anything comes up that's a fit for you, I'll be sure to email you. Number one, follow up. And I would follow up, if you can, the night of the open house, at the very latest, the morning after. Okay. And I know you're tired after an open house, but I can't stress how important it is to you don't want to follow up, in my opinion, during the open house. It's sort of like, hey, you have nothing else to do, but I want to follow up with you now. I would definitely not do that. I would follow up absolutely that evening or first thing the next morning. And then I would continue to follow up until you find something. As I said, one of my first clients, I followed up every single week for weeks. And they finally called me 3 months later, 3 months, with, by the way, never responding to one of my emails. And they said one of the reasons that they chose me was because I did not give up. I kept emailing something of value. Hey, even if you have nothing to share in terms of like a new listing coming on, hey, we just learned about this, new energy efficient window that you can put in. I'm just using that as an example. Something of value, follow up, keep following up. And I promise you that person will see that you're providing value, even if you're not the most experienced person. And I think that the majority of those will turn into a transaction. And I also think that, it could be a year or longer, but as long as you keep them in your database and you reach out, and by the way, email is not enough, calling, texting. And, there's a point at which you can't, be too much. You can't do it, too often. How often should you do it? At least email once a week, and I would text once or twice. Hey, did you get that email? Follow up.
Marina adds. I just saw a thing from Marina that she put some add them to her newsletter.
Do you add them, or do you ask them if you can add them?
And you could go off mute if you want.
Okay. So
they can unsubscribe. I know what people unsubscribe.
Yep, they totally can.
So, and I can see that they read it. I can see that they've even opened it like 3 times. And these are people that they've never responded to me. They don't, as far as I know, they hate me, but they look at my newsletter.
Yeah, no. And that's amazing, because you are putting yourself in front of them on a weekly, monthly, however often you do your newsletter. But I really think it's providing value that is so key in following up with, even if you have nothing. That's the one thing I think people, put them in their database, they put them in their phone, they have nothing, and they're like, well, what do I even do with that? It's following up with nothing. I'm thinking of you. Hey, anyway, I answered that question, right, Darren? Did I ramble too much?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So look, 5 minutes so you can get, because we have a hard stop-ish. So you guys, anyone, you could put it in the chat, or you could come off mute. If you have something unique you want to ask, or something different, please, by all means, what is the cadence with phone, text, and email?
I'll ask people, how do you like to communicate? Do you prefer text, email, or phone calls? A lot of people are like old school and they want to just talk on the phone. Most people just kind of want to text, and it also depends on their age. But ask them. Great meeting you at the open house via text or email, whichever info they gave you. I would start with the text. I think a lot of people are texters now. Hey, so great meeting you at the open house yesterday or tonight. I'm going to keep in touch with you and keep my eyes and ears open for you. How do you prefer to communicate? And once they tell you, that's the way that you do it, in my opinion. If most people are text, I would still put them on that email rotation. And even if it's, after your office meeting and you've gone through new and upcoming listings, that's the perfect opportunity to email them. I would always say, I've just learned about these, off market coming soon, blah, blah, blah. That's a great time to email. And then follow up with
Lisa,
I found that text received higher response rate than email. That's good. Yeah. I mean, I do think people today are like a very short attention span. I know me, my emails get backed up, and I even tell my TC, please text me if I haven't responded to something, because it's just easier for a fast response.
So Megan, Lisa Byram asked, what kind of things, if any, do you pass out at the open house? What kind of display do you have?
Okay. So I have a little trifold about me. Okay. So, why I'm so great, how long I've been in the business, what I've sold, a couple testimonials. I've got a little trifold that I leave out. And that's usually for sellers. I do find that some agents have picked it up. So I am kind of I leave a few out. I've got if you have a business card, or I've got these little lens cleaners that I leave out. It's got my contact info on it. I put a sign. I do a digital flyer with a QR code, because I'm finding that fewer people are taking my, $100 flyers. I spend so much money on these trifolds or bifolds. And I found that I was leaving that listing. It was selling, I've been fortunate enough to sell mine pretty quickly, and I go home with 25 of those. So I've been doing a QR code. And then on that, I also have, you can put together a QR code. I have one for my website that has the contact page. I'll say to people, if you want to just click on that QR code, you can put your contact information right there, and it'll go right, straight to me. I'll get an email. So I have that. And then, I've got this little sign that I got from all things real estate, or something that says, look around, fall in love, ask questions, something like that. I've got a couple of those. There are templates that you can find online. I can, if you want to email me or shoot me a text, I can send you. I have templates for little things like little signs that you can put in different areas for the open house. And then also, if you want to put a little tag with your logo or something on the water bottles. I mean, it's just cute little extras. And sometimes I have food out.
Good.
That's it.
Hey, Megan, okay, so one more question from Judith is, would you talk about doing open house for another agent, quote unquote, to be careful?
Wait, would you talk about, what I mean by be careful is don't talk about off market unless you have a clear, they've said, what, this house isn't for me. I'm going to go look at other houses. At that point is when you could maybe say, well, I did, hear about a couple of others that are coming soon if you want to connect with me. And that's if you really have something and you really know of something, or maybe you have a listing coming. But, like I said, you're there to sell that agent's house. So you want to be careful that you're not saying that before you've gotten that indicator that they're not interested in that house. They're counting on you to sell that house. It's not just there for you. You're not just there to get leads, even though that's a bonus, right? New agents are, a lot of times they don't have listings, so they've got to hold open houses for other people, but your job really is to sell that house. Does that make sense, or anyone?
Judith, you good? I think a lot of it is just real quick is a story of you had someone doing an open house. I'm not saying this is you, but if you did, you had someone doing an open house for you that was trying to help you sell your listing. And then they basically brought up another house around the corner that they were going to have coming up soon.
Yeah, that's tricky. I had an experience like that. I don't think that was anything, malicious on the other agent's part. It just, I guess that particular buyer was super interested, from what I understood, about my listing. And once they heard about this other listing, they weren't interested anymore and didn't write an offer. So for me, that was a good moment of a reminder that, you've got to be super careful, because if that agent found out that particular buyer no longer is interested in that house because they've now been told about this other house, I think that just is, doesn't look good. That's my opinion. Save it for when you're not at that listing, particularly with the cameras now. I would assume that every single thing that is that goes on in that open house is being recorded. You have to automatically assume that somebody is watching you. And if the seller saw that you were trying to talk about all kinds of other open houses and not talk about that listing, that is a bad look. That goes, no matter what.
Wait, one more here. No, that was Marina. She had to go. Okay, Megan.
So the last thing I want to leave with is make sure you, have some sort of call to action when they're leaving. Would you like me, depending on whether or not you've, maybe captured them as a lead, whether they're interested in that house, as they're leaving, I would say, would you like me to keep you posted on anything upcoming or off market or whatever, if in fact, you have something coming soon, or maybe they just want to know about something in the future, or would you like disclosures on this property? So make sure that you're getting an answer from them. So you're engaging them as they leave, and then, of course, the follow-up is next. So hopefully somebody got one takeaway from this that either they didn't know, or they'd forgotten about, or
a refresher. Exactly.
Or they'll use in the next open house, and hopefully that was somewhat helpful. So
Thank
if you have
Megan.
any questions, if anybody wants to ask me anything, I'm sure I forgot a million things. I had a ton of notes that I didn't even touch on. So I'm happy to chat anytime.
Okay. Thanks, Megan. Thanks everyone for getting on. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll make dinner tonight, hon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.